So my guest on today's podcast episode is Joe Rare. Joe is coming to us from Montana, which for those TV fans like me probably knows, I know all about Montana from Yellowstone. So the first question I've got to ask you, Joe, other than saying hello to you, is Montana as lovely in real life as it is on the TV?
It's better, but there's no space for anybody anymore. We're full.
Have you been inundated with tourists that kind of come in and?
It's crazy. It's actually less. Not so much that there's so many tourists. There's so many people who have moved here.
Right. Why is that? Why people move there?
The show. Honestly,
really,
I can't count. We have a lot of friends in real estate because I'm an investor, and the conversation is that people come because they think that they're going to get what they see on TV. And they don't realize that the price point is as expensive, if not more, than California.
Right.
So it's a very expensive housing cost. Cost of living is less, but housing cost is more expensive here than it is in most of California.
Right.
And so it's definitely different. But people are coming here literally because they watch the show and they think they're going to have a different, life experience, and they're going to see. I mean, I can't get mad. I mean, other than the fact that today's 17th of April, I think, and we had a snowstorm and we have 6 inches of snow on the ground. So if people are okay with that, this is a pretty good place. But realize that it's going to snow now and it's going to snow into May, and it snows a lot. And so I love it because I love the outdoors. But yeah, there you go.
So obviously the plan wasn't to talk about Montana. We're here to really,
sure.
Well, we're here to talk about digital marketing. So you're again, when I kind of read your bio, you're a serial entrepreneur, investor. You own, I think, four digital businesses, 5 wedding venues, and a whole bunch of property. So I'd love to kind of focus a little bit on kind of your journey to where you are now. How did you kind of get to where you are today?
Oh, I mean, the journey's been long. It's been different. It's I've been on. I say that I believe I'm an entrepreneur through and through, in the sense that taking a job would have probably killed me. And so I've always been doing my own thing in some format. And it started young. I watched my parents, my mom and my stepdad, who they are employees, and, finances were always a challenge. Then I look at, my biological dad. He was a failed entrepreneur, but when he would do well, it was like he was doing really well. But really, I mean, if I were to go back to like kind of the origin, I love telling this story because I think that some people probably resonate with it. I had a really good friend growing up whose dad used to take us to baseball games in the middle of the work week, in the middle of the day. And he would take us to Oakland A's games. I grew up in Northern California. And we would get to go to these games, and I always wonder, I'm like, how is this guy able to just, like, my parents are working. How is he able to do this? And I realized later that he owns the biggest businesses in town. And I'm like, okay, that guy. And it didn't resonate that was where I initially understood entrepreneurship, owning businesses. That's the path to freedom. And then, when I think I was about 17 or 18, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which a lot of people did. That really stuck with me as a beginning blueprint. And I went, okay, that's what I want to do. And so that became like my life's mission. I started my first business. I dropped out of college, started a business. I actually sold it when I was 22, and I made some money. And then I got into real estate investing, and then I made a bunch of money, and then I lost a bunch of money, and then I made money and I lost money. But I've always had this kind of entrepreneurial mind, and I've always wanted to own my opportunity rather than work for somebody else's opportunity. And I didn't want to be a catalyst to their wealth. I wanted to control my own. So that's kind of how I became an entrepreneur.
Yes. I kind of like applaud anyone that kind of that does that kind of has that kind of roller coaster ride. I think everyone just expects it to be, as a baseball analogy, you're sort of swinging for home runs every time, and it never kind of really works that way. But I think, if you understand how businesses work, then, kind of picking yourself up, dusting yourself off. When you have things that don't work the way you kind of envisage them working, it just, that thing didn't work. But then you just kind of go, why didn't it work? Learn from it, move forward, and kind of make sure the same thing doesn't happen again. That's the definition of insanity. But
entrepreneurs are insane because nobody would go through you. There has to be a level of of insanity in entrepreneurs because you're willing to go through torture every day, forever. And we do it with a smile on our face and we do it again. And then we intentionally do it again. And it's just, it is crazy. I mean, I know my wife thinks I'm nuts. I know my family, the rest of my family thinks I'm crazy too, for sure. But I'm not wired any other way. I don't know that I could do anything else other than build by businesses. Like that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And so that's, why I do what I do.
Yeah. I think, when I started in digital marketing back in 99, I mean, my first sort of 3 jobs were working for other companies. And I got laid off 3 times in a really quick succession because one, it was like a pretty volatile time, the early 2000s. 2, I was working with people who kind of could kind of hire and fire with impunity. I remember sitting in the office one day and somebody had come in and they were interviewing for one of the jobs that I had, but I got laid off, right? Which technically was kind of not the right thing. I mean, if they wanted to get rid of me, they should have just said, like, your performance isn't good enough. You need to go. And I'd probably have just walked out the door at that point, right? But, but obviously, from 2000 to kind of now, I mean, that's 25 years. I've been sort of like the creator of my own destiny, right? I've kind of backed myself to kind of succeed. And not everything that I've done has worked well, right? I mean, my wife and I have had more than one argument about some of the crazy business ideas I come up with, which just didn't work for various reasons, right? I mean, sometimes it's because of me, sometimes it's been because of circumstances and the environment that you kind of operate in. I mean, again, like when you look at things like the pandemic, I had been working in travel for a long time, right? And then got out of travel and into kind of e-commerce, drop shipping, stuff like that. And the pandemic was like massively successful for me, right? Because I'd got out of travel. If I'd still been in travel, I have no idea what I would have done, right? Because all the travel companies were just like dead on arrival, right? So So I guess, like, obviously behind you got your level 9 virtual. I'd love to kind of know a little bit more about that business in terms of how you've kind of set it up and what was it that kind of got you into using virtual assistants in the first place?
The 4-Hour Workweek, actually, the book. I read that. I'd sold a business, ended up getting into real estate. 2008, the market crashed, and I lost literally every dollar that I had, even though, the money was really like rolled equity between properties and just kept, compounding. But at the end of the day, I couldn't get out of the deals that we were in. And so I ended up losing it all. And so I was sitting around kind of going, well, pity party on me. What am I going to do next? And I read the 4-Hour Workweek and I said, I can do this. And so I built an e-commerce business, literally page by page out of the book. I did every single thing out of the book and built an e-commerce business. And part of that was using virtual assistants for fulfillment and, and marketing reasons and admin and all that stuff. And so in November of 2008, I hired my first virtual assistant, and I've had at least one, if not a team, working with me every single day since, which has been very helpful. And then as I was running another business, I had another marketing agency a while back. One of the VAs in the team just said, hey, you keep telling everybody how to go hire their own VAs. Why don't we just run a VA company? And I said, well, I don't really want to. And they said, well, what if we run the business and you just help us get it going and you can be the owner and so forth, but we'll do the operations. And so I was like, all right, if we could do that, I'll do it. And so we did. And we kind of got going and we were working with just our own clients, and it was great. And, we had money coming in and it was pretty successful. And then I said, well, I wonder if I could scale this up. And so then I took this, kind of marketing, outreach and sales model that I'd used elsewhere and rolled it here. And then it was just, it exploded. And so then that became the biggest business that we had at the time. So that's kind of how we got there.
And again, I mean, I was really impressed with your virtual assistant that was helping organize this meeting taking place, right? Because obviously I rescheduled it a few times, and she's been phenomenal to kind of talk to, right? So but again, like yourself, I mean, I've been using sort of virtual assistants in one way, shape, or form since probably about 2006, right? And but again, I think a lot of people kind of just think, I can just go and find one, dump everything on them, and they'll be phenomenal. And I think you still need to train people. You still need to treat them well, pay them well, I know that with sort of Filipino VAs, they all have that kind of 13-month payday, which again throws some people off, and they kind of, a lot of people will have probably a little bit of moonlighting, so they may be working for you and other people, and also things like, natural events like typhoons that can kind of wipe out the power and the phone and everything for a long period of time, which is clearly not their fault. So I think sometimes people don't appreciate and accept the challenges that come with it. I mean, there's definitely some benefits, but there's also some challenges. Could you maybe talk to that in more detail? I mean, like I said, I've been doing it for a little while, clearly nowhere near at the sort of same scale as you, but I'd be interested to kind of hear a little bit more about what some of those challenges are. The people that maybe are thinking of hiring a VA themselves, right? And kind of what the challenges are.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the challenges are interesting. The natural disaster piece of it with typhoons and probably lack of the same level of infrastructure that you might have locally, that's one thing. And you're going to get that with pretty much any, overseas country that you're probably going to hire from, whether it be, Asian, Pacific, or it's going to be, maybe Asian mainland. You're still going to run into some of those challenges, and that's fine. In the Philippines specifically, I see that if you just create the right expectations and somebody really understands what they should be doing, how they should be doing it, what is expected of you, or excuse me, of them, very, very consistently, easily for them to recognize. If you can keep that clear, your results skyrocket. The biggest challenge I think that most people are going to run into isn't the fact that maybe they don't have the fastest internet, or they don't have the best phone lines, or a typhoon hits and they're down for 3 days. That's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem usually is the entrepreneur who's unable to communicate what they need. That's the biggest challenge. And what I have said and what we've seen just over the past decade has been, if you communicate clearly, almost anything is successful. However, when we get a problem with somebody who's got a VA and they're finding a challenge, 99% of the time it's communication. And we can just see it, and we always, we try to track everything so that we can always go back to this. 99% of the time it's communication. Now, whether the business owner or the entrepreneur is going to admit fault that they're not communicating clearly is a different story. And most of the time there's a lot of ego wrapped up in, well, I said it, and this is what I said, and they should just know it. And the reality is you've got a couple things going on. You've got a little bit of a language barrier, not much. English is the second language in the Philippines, so it's not like it's hard, but it's how we say things. Like there's always something that I think I'll notice this one phrase that gets said every single time it gets said, no matter how long I have, staff over there. When I ask somebody to do something, they will say, oh, in a way that we would think like, oh, they already did it. What I'll say, hey, can you go, make sure that this is taken care of? And then they'll come back a few minutes later and they'll say, this is already complete. And I think they did it yesterday. But what that means is that they just did it. And it's like that little nuance right there can throw so many people off. And if you aren't humble enough to recognize that the same words mean a little bit of a different thing, and then have some patience to it, have some grace to it, be willing to recognize that you two just, may not communicate exactly the same, but you're going to be 90% there. And if you can just be patient, if you can double check and make sure that people are understanding what you mean, and the communication piece of it is the game changer. And unfortunately, most entrepreneurs are too busy. They're too busy to slow down and just recognize that if they communicate effectively in the beginning, then the longevity is no problem. But if they're unwilling to slow down, then they're going to have communication issues, and then they're going to have a bad experience, and then they're going to blame anybody except themselves. And that's that.
Yeah, I always think if you've got a written down process that somebody can follow, I kind of like adopt it's called an EDIC model. Explain, demonstrate, imitate, consolidate. So you kind of tell them what you want to be done, what the task is, You then demonstrate how the task is done. They show you what they think you've just done. You can imitate, they imitate you. And then at that point in time, you can then consolidate it. Have you got it all now? Yeah, fine, great. Because I've always said, I will happily repeat myself on more than one occasion to make sure that the task gets done properly. I don't want to rip people's heads off because they've done something wrong if I haven't explained it properly to begin with, right? So, quite often, again, I've always found you kind of do that process, you go through it, and quite often they'll come up with better ways of doing it than you've done it yourself. So you can go, I want you to kind of rewrite the kind of the process to make it better based on your feedback, because they go, what about if we did this? What about if we did this? And I'm like, fantastic. Like, I think that's the one thing most good entrepreneurs have, is they have that ability to be able to say, I don't have all the answers. And I'm more than happy to defer recognition to the people that come up with the answers. So that for me, I think is such a valuable lesson to learn, is that you don't have all the answers. And quite often there will be a better way of doing the task than you have done it yourself. And I think more so now with AI, right? I think a lot of people are using AI and thinking that they can do away with things like VAs and whatever else. It's just like, I honestly think that they're crazy if that's what they think, right? Because, in some...
It's going to be an interesting few years. What I see that's probably going to happen, and I follow David Sachs, who's a VC, and now he's actually working in, at the White House, and I think in some sort of capacity, but he has a very interesting take on it. His thought process is that over the next 5 years, 3 years, we're watching the pendulum swing where, it was like outsourcing was great. And then using staff, whether it be, outsourced or local, the process of having people do activities has been great. Then it moved and AI kind of came in, lots of automation in business, lots of code. So you have technology stepping in the middle, and that's been very, very helpful. Then AI really took over, and now the pendulum's swinging completely the opposite direction, where people are attempting, you can see this everywhere. If you're in the marketing space, you know this to be true. Everything is AI only. AI call center, AI chatbot, AI this, AI that. Build a website in 30 seconds with AI. And that's great. And I think that what's going to happen is we're going to see the pendulum swing so far out there to where consumer sentiment is going to shift, and it's going to be, I don't trust it. Because like right now, you go onto social media and you see, oh, there's somebody famous saying something. Then there's the, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
That's,
deep fake.
Oh, here's this famous person promoting a product. That person isn't promoting the product. It's AI, right? So we're going to push the envelope so far that it's going to shift back, and where we're going to land is going to be AI enhanced humans, right? It's going to be augmented staffing. So we're going to have AI supporting humans to maximize output at a rate we've never seen before. I mean, this is already incredible, but I think that as we break the system by trying to go too much AI, and when it comes back, the people who recognize it will come back to people. At the end of the day, the biggest deals that ever exist, your best clients, you have a relationship. It isn't, well, it talks to my CRM and that's how I got my best client. It's a relationship. The biggest companies on the planet, still to this day, with all the money in the world, a person flies to the other person, builds a relationship, and eventually they'll do business together.
Yeah.
That is still the way the biggest relationships are done.
Yeah. And all my best deals have always happened at 1 or 2 in the morning. I'm drinking cocktails or beers with people. We're having a good time interacting in a social environment, because then that way we can both say, it's not just me. We both can say, I know this person. I like this person. I trust this person. It's going to be good for us to do business together.
Let's do business.
Right? And
that's right.
And without that, it's going to be that much more challenging. They know, right? They know that I'm not going to be the person that will press the buttons on everything that goes on. But they also know that ultimately everything stops with me. In the same way that I'm sure with all your VAs, right? The buck still stops with Joe. Joe's responsible for the overall satisfaction of the clients that you work with to make sure that everything does what it should be doing and everything else.
Sure. Yeah.
But
I just think that the trust factor is going to be challenging when there's no human involved in it. And I think that's going to be where there's going to be a breaking point. And I think that the sentiment will shift back to, well, I want to talk to a human, which is funny because if you look at a lot of chatbots, right, some of the options are talk to a human, because we already know that people want to get to a person. And so, yeah, I mean, I think AI is a powerful enhancement to anything you're doing. If you're not using it, you're absolutely crazy. But I think that if you put all your eggs in the fact that humans are going to be replaced completely in a service industry, I mean, the reality is AI isn't going to show up at somebody's house and mow their lawn, not for a very, very long time, maybe into the future if robots get to that point. They're also not going to be the person that's going to show up and do a consultation to decide if, how you're going to remodel your kitchen, right? There's still going to be all of those human elements. I think we can't ignore the fact that those are still going to exist, but we should all be leveraging AI to improve our processes if we can.
Yeah. And I think, like on the ad platform side of things with like Facebook and Google, I mean, they've kind of done away with all the people that we used to talk to when we had challenges or problems with clients that we work with, and everything done, the ad approvals, the validation, privacy, it's all done with their, AI, right?
Their AI.
And
they get a lot of it wrong.
And every person I know that runs an agency hates the fact that they can't talk to somebody and say, look, this is just wrong. There'll be certain colors that appear in photos that you upload that they'll say, well, this is nudity. And it's like, it's not nudity at all, right? It's just, it's the color of the palette that we've been using, right? And, and
you're selling you could be selling a marketing service and they're like, well, that's housing discrimination. You're like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's it. And that's a prime example, right? The biggest company, one of the top 7 companies in the world can't get that right.
Yeah. I remember there was
and because you and I could both say, we don't know a single agency owner that could say, oh, I love their AI. I love how they do that. Every single person I know in the industry all hates it. And that's the biggest company on the planet. So it's like, well, wait a minute here. If they can't get it right, do you think that every small business is going to nail it? No way.
I mean, I have sort of found myself like trying things using AI and then reverting back to doing it the way I did it before, right? Just because, again, I think as an entrepreneur, you're always like testing, learning, failing, testing, learning, failing, succeeding, testing, learning. It's always kind of doing this kind of backwards and forwards with the technology to see what works, how it works, what are the kind of nuances of it. Again, I kind of look at my bank statements. I'm like, wow, we are spending so much money on these, $20 a month subscriptions for this and this and this and this. And it's like, whoa,
test.
Hang on, it could really kind of get out of hand, and.
It can. And I mean, I a piece of advice that I would have for anybody out there is if you're doing that, if you're an entrepreneur and you are in the phase of testing stuff, at least once a quarter, sit down and evaluate your expenses in tech. And because we have our software and technology, itemized category. We go through that quarterly and go, oh my God, we don't need these 40 things we don't need, right? Let's just ditch those. And, I mean, that's next thing you know, you've got a couple mortgage payments saved.
Yeah, I remember when I worked for a travel company, I employed this young lady who was like our paid social media manager, right? And she kind of came to me and she said, Jim, I want to kind of like use this service. And I'm like, okay, so tell me a little bit about it. So she told me what it was, told me what it did. And I said, well, based on how much we spend, like, what is it going to cost us? And she told me, and I said, so let me just get this right. I'm going to buy a piece of software that costs 3 times as much money to the business as you cost me. Why don't I just get 3 more of you? And then that way
that's funny because that's so true. Most businesses go, oh, the technology, even though they don't look at it at scale and go, okay, well, how much am I paying you guys to do the same thing? Because somebody might say, well, it's taking a ton of our time. All right, but how much am I paying you? How much time is it taking? And then how much does the software cost? It's like, but I'm net losing in the situation. And so I've actually, my claim to fame is that all of my businesses are run by virtual assistants. So Level 9 Virtual is operated by a team of VAs in the Philippines. They run the company. My marketing agency is fully run by virtual assistants in the Philippines. I train them specifically that don't bring me some technological solution to a problem that has a net negative ROI. So evaluate the existing cost that it would take, then make sure that whatever solution you bring me is a benefit plus an ROI positive return. If it's not, don't bring it to me. And they've gotten really good at that. And so, the number of, hey, Joe, we should do this, it goes down quite a bit when they understand the rules of the game,
Yeah, it's interesting. When I sold my first agency back in 2006, I sold it to a publicly traded US company that was doing a roll up. They basically went out and bought 14 other businesses, including mine, even though they had the biggest sort of SEO agency in the world, right? This business was ruthlessly inefficient. And so they asked me to kind of come over to the States. And I spent sort of 2 weeks there, 2 weeks back in the UK, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks back in the UK. And I just spent a lot of time kind of going through this process of trying to right size the business. And what became really apparent to me was that there was so many things that kind of happened that you kind of said, well, this is just ruthlessly inefficient. So they had a client, they would do kind of conference calls with clients. This is obviously before conference calls was de rigueur, right? So the client would be, let's say they're based in California. So the client would have two people sitting in a room with a screen up, and at the agency there'd be two people on the client side. And on the agency side, there'd be about 14 different people sitting in the room talking to the client, right? They'd have account directors, account managers, creative people, blah, blah, blah. They had all these different people. And I sort of sat there and I'm like, I sat with a piece of paper and I wrote down kind of like based on payroll, how much per hour this particular client meeting was costing, right? And the meeting lasted 2 hours. All 14 people were in the meeting for 2 hours, right? And I'm like, you do realize that we earned in terms of payroll expenses is probably double, right, what the retainer we're getting from this client for the whole month is, right? And this meeting was taking place every week. I'm like, this is just crazy that, you have that many people involved on the call, right? So again, we kind of tried to do it, tried to kind of make it sort of fit. Didn't work. So we kind of laid a bunch of people off. That didn't work. And eventually we took it from 200 people down to 8, right? And even at 8 people, it was still kind of teetering on the edge of unprofitability, right? So they had about, I think they had 55 salespeople, and those 55 salespeople were bringing in about 80 new contracts a month. So I said, well, how many contracts are you losing every month? And they said, about 80, right? I said, so the net effect is you've got 55 staff on payroll for sales, right? And your net is like breaking even in terms of the number of clients that you have, right? And they went, yeah. And they had they had no sort of geographical sort of split. So everyone kind of whoever answered the phone when it rang, got an inbound inquiry, they'd be the person that would be able to process that sale. So let's say it was Dell called up and said, look, we want some SEO for Dell. We've got a budget of £10 million. If a salesperson had started the day before, right, they'd be the person that answered the phone, right? And this office was in North Carolina, and at pretty much at 5 o'clock, the office was deserted, right? And I'm like, so in the States, you always have your different time zones. So everyone that was in California was in Pacific time, right? So they were like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The office was closed. So it would just, the phone would just ring and ring and ring, and nobody would be there to answer it. They didn't even have an answering service for it, right? I just thought myself,
Dang.
There was so much inefficiency that went with it. And when we would do the rounds of layoffs, we would all go to the pub afterwards to sort of like commiserate for the people that left, right? And everyone that was left kept saying, oh, they were really, really good people. We should never have got rid of them. I'm like, yeah, I know they were really good people, but the company's bleeding red ink. It's kind of got to be put right.
Yeah.
Right. And they just never listened to kind of, the whole definition of insanity doing the same thing. So nothing changed.
Yeah.
Nobody had kind of realized that they potentially could be in the next round of layoffs that happened. And like I said, we did 4 rounds of layoffs to get rid of 190 people before it kind of leveled itself out. And I kind of look at it and again, think to myself, there are so many entrepreneurs that think about growth, but they never really think about sort of sorting things out when things are going a bit south, right? And sometimes like having the ability to make a difficult but ruthless decision is quite important. The final bit on that, the first guy that they got rid of, right, in the office sort of clear out was the cleaner, right? So this guy cleaned the office for 200 people, right? And I said, so what's going to happen to to the cleaning now? And they said, well, we'll have a rota, right? So I sort of said to them, okay, so everyone that's on the executive team, you're also going to be there kind of cleaning out shit in the toilet and, polishing the sinks and everything else. No, we're not going to do that. Well, then it's not a rota, right? Unless your name's on it, right? And what they realized very, very quickly was this guy organized everything. So they had a meeting that was taking place, clients coming in. He was the one that put the overhead projector in there to enable the sort of screen to be kind of shown. And this guy just did everything, right? And they didn't realize that until after they'd let him go, right? And if you think about it, I mean, I think he's getting paid about 35 grand a year, which is nothing in the scheme of things, just peanuts, right?
Yeah.
If anything, he probably should be the last person that you get rid of, not the first. But that's what they decided to do.
Right.
Let's get rid of him. He's too expensive. Let's get rid of him, right? Which to me was just crazy.
Oh man.
So in terms of you mentioned there that you get all your businesses are run from the Philippines. I mean, do you go to the Philippines regularly at all, or?
No, it's funny because, during COVID, right when kind of COVID happened, I thought we were going to make a trip and go. And then that didn't work out because obviously travel got kind of crazy. And then unfortunately, I still haven't gone over there since. And it's been years. And, I've got 2 young kids and it's sports and it's, everything going on. And one of the missions that I have in my business is that my family, my lifestyle, like what we want, the most important thing to me is time with my family. So that's a non-negotiable. And so I don't involve myself in anything that would cause me to miss anything with my kids. And so this is just something, it's a commitment that I made to myself. It's a commitment that I made to my kids. And I would shut down a business if it was causing me to miss. And so that's been one of my challenges with just really extended travel. Like I don't travel much for business. Like I don't go many places. If we can't do it via, for the most part, Zoom and so forth, then, I don't do much of it. And, I think I go to kind of 2 conferences or summits per year, and that's about it. I stay home for the most part, but I've got, and the other thing about it too, is that I don't run the staff. So, a relationship with me would last the moment that we met. I have people who are in charge of people because my skill set is not managing people. I'm not good at it. Even like my executive team, I still have somebody between me and them because like I can have one person to deal with, but if I had 8, like I would fail. And I know that enough about myself. So I don't involve myself and try to be somebody that I'm not. And when we had a lot of turnover with staff and so forth was when I was in charge of holding relationships and maintaining staff and checking on them and like kind of doing the HR stuff. If I'm involved in that, everybody's in trouble. And so we put the right people in place. They manage the relationships. They manage get-togethers. They do all those things because it's not in my personality to do it. I like being more of a strategic advisor and an investor in my businesses.
Yes.
And so that's how it works for me.
I was kind of say, like, I'm a huge fan of autonomy and empowerment, right? So
yeah,
when you delegate something to your VAs or what have you, you got to delegate everything, right? You have to kind of go with the whole trust thing, right?
We got to trust them to execute, and you got to give them latitude to fail.
Yeah.
That's something entrepreneurs are terrified of.
And I used to say,
and I don't understand why. You get a staff member, virtual assistant, outsourced, somebody local, doesn't matter. And then when they don't do something right, it's immediately the hammer drops. And you go, but how many times have you failed in your business, building your business? You try something, it doesn't work. Try something else, that doesn't work. maybe something kind of finally works and you get a little bit of success. And I understand that you're sharing in the success, right? That money could be going to me, but I'm going to employ somebody else. But then you have to give them the same latitude that you gave yourself. You allowed yourself to fail. You went out and didn't get it right. And so that's been one of our probably the most powerful things I think that we do as a company is we give everybody latitude to go fail, go screw up, go try again. Now, if you're making the same mistake over and over, now you're an idiot. Like learn the lesson. And if you're not learning the lesson, you don't belong. And so, we've been very, very, open about that being one of probably our most strategic moves that we have within our teams.
Yeah, I always kind of think that, again, I see people that go, I've got to control everything. So if they need passwords, they need to do this, that. I always say, like, have the whole lot, right? So for me, I just make sure that they don't have to come to me and say, Jim, I need a password for this or whatever it might be, right? So to make sure I can eliminate myself from as many of those kind of, barriers that get thrown up as possible.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Again, I just want the output. I don't want to kind of necessarily be bothered. And much like yourself, right? I'm probably one of the worst people managers ever, right? But again, very generous, caring, considerate, right? But I just hate it when people make mistakes, right? And, so sometimes, I always remember I had people that worked for me and they would say, oh, Jim's sent another shittogram, right? So I would sit there at 2 a.m, see the kind of waste of money that people have spent money on ads that they shouldn't have done. Just through, again, I've always said, I will give people the sort of the guardrails and the boundaries in terms of this is the track that you got to run on. And as long as you follow the process, we're good. If you've gone outside of the kind of rails and got off the reservation to some extent, then, clearly we have an issue that kind of needs to be addressed at that point. But yeah,
absolutely.
And like my business now is very boutique. It's boutique by design. I don't want to kind of run a big agency, because I'm at the point in life where I'm enjoying life and I'm enjoying kind of spending the money, not necessarily wanting to try and make a lot more by putting myself in a position where I have a lot more stress, right? Much like you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm at the point now, I think pre-pandemic, I used to travel for probably 3 or 4 months of the year to speak at conferences and go away and what have you. And sometimes my wife would travel with me and that was great. And sometimes she wouldn't. I'd be there on my own, right? So, so for me, I think it became, my health was not good. I was kind of eating junk in hotels and drinking too much in bars and so on. So I just thought to myself, I would need to kind of rein this in, right? So in some respects, the pandemic was probably the best thing that could have happened to me because it made me reassess what mattered. And I realized that kind of my health was probably one of the most important things that mattered to my business, because if I didn't have good health, then what else do you have, right? So, so I've always tried to kind of make sure that like you're there for whatever needs your family have, right? For me, I don't really, I'm a fairly simple guy, right? I just want to make sure that she's okay, and she's okay, I'm okay. And if the family's okay, or kids and grandkids, if they're all good, I'm good, right? And that's all that matters to me, Rick.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the future, I mean, what's kind of on the horizon now for you in terms of, like, do you have any kind of new projects that you're working on, or?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, I think right now what we're going to focus on is consistent growth with each of the 4 companies that we're operating. I'm exiting the wedding venues. So, you had mentioned 5. I'm actually down to 4 now.
Is that because people are not getting married anymore? Or?
No, you'd be surprised. It's still a red hot business. It's great. My focus is just changing. I think that it's a good time to just, take whatever out of each of the businesses, because I'm not a full owner. I'm an equity owner. And so I think it's fair. All of the venues are in a good position to be able to do it. And so I think, it won't deteriorate any opportunities for the company. So now is a good time for us to do that. And so I'm 1 down already. And so we'll see how that goes for the rest of the year. But that, everything else though, is just, really looking at consistent growth, being very smart and tight with spending. Every economy right now is kind of volatile. And I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the near future. And I want to make sure that we're in a position to take advantage of it. And so that we're not strapped and we don't have any cash if there's an opportunity to go buy a competitor or something like that. So that's kind of just where my head's at for the next year or two, probably.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when you look at sort of all that's going on in the world with wars and tariffs and whatever else. I mean, again, I think there's a lot of people I would have expected to be making a lot more noise, right? Particularly, people that do drop shipping from China and stuff like that. It's like, why aren't they kind of like standing on the top of bridges thinking of jumping off, right? Because, if I was a drop shipper now and all my sort of stuff came from China, I'd be like, God almighty, this is not nowhere near a business that I'm going to be able to sustain moving forward. But,
that's going to be an interesting one. I think, the tariff thing's kind of funny because I think that there's just so much lack of understanding. And so a lot of the noise is unfettered. There's no reason for most of it. It's a lot of people just screaming because something's different than it was yesterday. And they just that's what they do, right? They would scream no matter what. And so I think that you just get a lot of information that just isn't, what do I want to say? It's not complete. And because most people aren't getting complete information and they don't personally understand it, then they just start talking and it kind of creates this snowball of everybody saying things that are not complete or they're inaccurate. And, there's just so much noise. And so people are getting fearful. And the reality is that, the tariffs, one of the funniest things is I was looking at this thing with Nike, it's like this, you get these pair of shoes that are being made in China. The reality is tariffs aren't going to bring manufacturing of shoes to the US. That's not going to happen. And the fact is we wouldn't want that anyway. So what Nike figured out is that they figured out that if I sell this pair of whatever Jordans and we make them over here in China and that costs us $20 to make that pair of shoes. And we know that the market in the US is going to be that we are going to sell them for $150. We know that if they're $165, that's too expensive and our volume drops. We know that if they're $120, the volume goes up, but our margins lower and our marketing costs, we eat up more of it. And so that's not the right, $150 is right on the money, right? And then it costs us 20 and we sell it for 150. That markup is enormous.
Yeah.
And so everybody out there that's concerned, retail markup on clothing, shoes, and handbags and all that stuff is higher than you can possibly fathom. And so the difference being is that a tariff, you have a 100% tariff on the $20 manufacturing. Now it costs you 40. And so now it's 40, but you're still making 100, you're still charging 150. That 150 won't change because they know at 175 or 162, it's too expensive and the volume drops. Like these businesses are very smart. And I don't think that people are recognizing it. They think their cell phone now, your $1,000 iPhone isn't going to be $2,000, right? It's just not, because they know where their threshold is. Apple is very intelligent. And instead of making 1,000% margin, they're going to make 800%.
Yeah.
And they're going to be fine with it. And maybe they make a little bit less profit, or they do something a little bit different. And I just think that the information is not complete. And therefore you just get the same people who yell about everything out there yelling about everything.
Yeah.
And for small businesses, for the most part, maybe you'll see an influx. It's not going to be so much that it's going to completely derail your business.
But it's interesting when you mentioned iPhones. I mean, like it used to be you had this box and it had all the stuff in it. And like now it just comes with the phone. There's not even a plug, right?
That's
or
right.
a cable.
It's crazy.
They just assume you've got the cable.
So
if you want a cable, they'll sell you one for like,
absolutely
$50. It's like
$40. It's insane. That thing costs them like $6. And that, and it's like, they're charging 1,000% markup. And so that's the point that I think, people just don't recognize how what these businesses really, that they're very intelligent.
Yeah. And the thing is,
and
they're so good at marketing that, they announce a new phone and there will be a line of people around the block to get one. Even though somebody's got like a 16, they're going to go, I want a 70, right? Because
that's right.
That's just the way they are, right?
It's a vanity thing.
And they're not going to go, hold on, I'm going to buy that because it's another $200 than what it cost me last time. So if that's what it is, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I just think that these kind of tariff-free things just, again, tariffs have probably existed across the board for everything that kind of we buy and sell, right? It's kind of, it's just the nature of the beast that everything kind of balances itself out over time, right? And,
over time. Well, I always love the idea, when people say, well, tariffs won't work. And I'm like, really? Then why do 170 countries use them?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
if they don't work, then why does everybody use them? Like, of course it works. It's not going to be that there's an announcement and then everything levels out. It's going to take pain. It's going to take time. It's going to, and everybody's going to go through it, and the dust will settle. And what I hope is that as an entrepreneur who believes that the market should dictate what we do, right? Like nobody who should not be running a business is going to succeed. So you're going to have to get better. Just like in every industry, when marketing agencies, right? COVID killed the industry and made it trash, because guess who became a marketer? Everybody with a laptop.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everybody's a marketer. And that now the reputation of being a marketer was like, well, you're sleazy. Now you're a used car salesman, right? Because everybody's a marketer, everybody's promising the world, and very few can deliver. I believe that when these market fluctuations happen, the bottom 10, 20% of these businesses are going to die.
Yeah.
And that'll be great, because it will kind of reset. And it's like, okay, people who are doing good service, they're going to continue to succeed.
Yeah.
But everybody else needed to grab their little sliver of cash, and that's all they were trying to do. But they were providing bad service. They weren't really that great. They didn't have the business in mind, the best interest of their clients in mind. They're going to fail. You see it in the real estate market. That's the easiest one to see. Everybody floods when it's a hot market. I'm a real estate agent now. Everybody grabs their little commissions until the market gets challenging. And then you see who's who.
Yeah.
And then all of the little realtors who popped in just to grab a buck, they all leave. The market settles. And the people who do real estate as a career, they're the ones who succeed.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And that's how it should be.
Yeah. And I've always kind of maintained, one of my very early sort of thoughts around digital marketing and advertising was that, most advertisers have probably got 10% of their money going on things that are complete home runs and killers. And they've also got 10% of their money that's a complete waste of money, right? And they should be focusing all their efforts on, how can I spend the 10% that I'm wasting and enable me to kind of spend it on the 10% that's really good, right? And then that'll put sort of, like a turbo on the output at the end of it, right? But most advertisers just kind of, okay, it's kind of, I expected a 3x ROAS. I'm getting a 3x ROAS, fantastic, right? And there's
good.
If they eliminated the inefficiencies, then they could probably have a 4 or 5 ROAS, right? They just don't realize it.
Yeah.
And again, I think sometimes a lot of agencies are too lazy to kind of put that effort in. They get asked to deliver a 3x, so they deliver a 3x. They're not asked to deliver a 5, right? And again, I don't necessarily know that that's the right thing. I think some good agencies should probably be pushing back and just say, look, I'm just going to deliver the best I can with what you give me, right? And if that means that I'm going to deliver you 2x, but it's achieving all your business objectives, then that's what we're going to end up with, right? But it's like it's a proper adult conversation rather than they just give you a number that you hit. Sometimes it's so easy to hit it, right? And I know on occasions I sort of sit there and feel guilty, right, for the little work that I need to do in order to kind of send an invoice for.
I love that. I love that though. When people feel that, I always revert back to that story, and I don't know if it's a fable or what it is, but there's a ship that they can't get the ship running, and the old guy in town is the one who is like a master fixing, and they go, look, we just need to get this thing running. And he comes out and he looks around and he pulls out a hammer and he just gives it a couple taps. And then he goes, okay, fire it up. And the thing fires up. No big deal. And they go, how'd you do that? He goes, I'll send you an invoice. And then he sends them like a $10,000 invoice. And they go, well, what is this for? Like, you didn't even do anything. He goes, all right, I'll send you an itemized one. And it's, 2 taps cost this much. And the knowledge of knowing where to tap costs this much.
Yeah.
And it's like, who cares? Who cares how long it takes? I want my dentist to be so efficient that he can go and he can execute whatever he needs to do in the shortest period of time. I don't want to feel like I have to pay him for the long period of time. I want the expertise to be able to get it done quickly, efficiently, done right, rather than being like, well, yeah, that was like a 3-hour ordeal, so it was worth the money.
Yeah.
And I think people have a skewed view on money spent versus, the expertise that they're receiving.
Yeah, I think a lot of the like with the podcast, I mean, I still do all my own editing, create all my own social media clips and all that sort of stuff. And I do it because I enjoy it, right? It's not, I couldn't,
Oh, well, there
it's
you
not
go.
that I can't afford to kind of outsource it and, get an editor.
Yeah.
It's just, I really enjoy doing it. I find it quite kind of, I'm very enthusiastic about it. If I lose that enthusiasm, I'm absolutely coming and talking to you to kind of get some help to get it done. But yeah,
Wonderful.
But for now, like I said, I've always kind of said that's the beauty of choice, right? I can choose which clients I want to work with and which ones I don't, right? Again, I know a lot of agencies that are already struggling. I always say, look, I've got way more people that want to work with me than I want to work with, right? And it's been that way for a long time.
That's where you want to be. That's right.
But they're sort of scratching around because they say, we'll work with anyone, we'll do anything. Because, there's nothing I hate more than when a client says, I'm looking for this, and somebody goes, yeah, I can do that. And they've never done it before, right? Because you just know that they're going to take the money, do a bad job, and then the client's going to go and get a proper agency to do the job, right? But they'll be a lot more cynical with the next agency that comes along.
Oh, yeah.
To kind of, it's almost like you'll be accountable for what they did wrong rather than kind of
100%
praised for what you do right. So,
100%.
So I always say to people, how many agencies have you worked with before approaching me? And if they say like 3, I'm like, I don't think the agencies have been the problem. I think you're the problem. You probably set unrealistic expectations of what you expect them to do for what money you're prepared to pay them. And,
right.
Again, I've always said, like, as good as I am at paid search, it's not a magic wand. I can't create, great results if you've got a poor website, it's not priced properly, poor customer service, like all that stuff is going to just hurt me in trying to kind of deliver good results for you without a doubt. So, So Joe, this has been fantastic. I've loved having you on as a guest. All your details will be in the show notes at the end of the episode. Is there anything that you kind of want to leave my audience with us in terms of a parting shot?
Oh, sure. The lesson that I love to share is to go fail fast, right? Go make a lot of mistakes, get back up. You'll find the success is faster if you're not afraid to fail. So go fail fast, get back up, do it again, and eventually you'll find your success.
Yeah. And the worst that can happen is it just doesn't work. And you just kind of go, okay, that didn't work. I'll kind of move on, try it.
If you keep trying, something will work.
Yeah.
So just keep trying. Yeah. Something will hit.
I've had a lot of success with complete accidents, things that I really didn't think were going to blow up the way they did. And then it blows up, and then you just try and get the fuel the flames and keep it going for as long as you can. Yeah. But everything is cyclical. Even if you're an investor in real estate, there will be periods when it's really great to be a real estate investor, and probably times, as you say, like the kind of crash of 2008 completely decimated the property market.
Absolutely.
For anyone that was an investor at that time, they probably got completely slaughtered. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
Great. So thanks again, Joe. Really appreciate your time. And
I appreciate you. Yeah.
Talk to everyone on the next episode of Digital Marketing Stories.